Are the Miami Heat interested in bringing back Heat legend Goran Dragic? Apparently, there have been some preliminary talks between both sides. Also, if they do not re-sign Goran Dragic, what are 5 other point guards the Heat could sign to potentially back up Damian Lillard, because it is a need of the Miami Heat? Before we dive in to what Goran Dragic's situation looks like, I want you guys to follow me on Twitter, because if you want news, rumors, and analysis of the Miami Heat before the YouTube video, follow me on Twitter, because I usually go on there and send out my thoughts on the Miami Heat before hopping on camera and getting you guys a video. So if you want to become more informed quicker, follow me on Twitter. And guess what? This could be you too, because if you do follow me on Twitter, you'll get a shout out on tomorrow's show. I'm going to do the first 10 new followers get a shout out. So if you want to be shouted out on tomorrow's show, give me a follow on the Bird app. I'm not going no dumbass X. It's still the Bird app, in my opinion. All right, let's get into some Goran Dragic news and rumors, because could the Heat reunite with Goran Dragic? He played a lot of seasons in Miami, 391 total games in the regular season. That's not accounting for the postseason numbers for Dragic, but he was very key in some of the successes the Miami Heat had in the late teens. Now, there has been some talks between Dragic and the Miami Heat. And Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald said that there has been some talks, nothing substantial, but just a little back and forth. And Jackson had to say any Heat decision on Dragic likely would come later in the summer. That basically just means if they are going to sign Goran Dragic, they're only going to sign him after the Damian Lillard situation is resolved. They are not going to sign Dragic before they trade for Damian Lillard or are told they are not going to get Damian Lillard. So that situation is still going to be in that holding pattern that so many other vet-min free agents are still in. I will say this, though. The Heat absolutely do need a backup point guard, because when you think of what is on the Miami Heat roster as we currently speak, there is Kyle Lowry, but you expect him to be shipped out if Damian Lillard comes to town. Who else could handle the rock on the team? I mean, Josh Richardson, sure, he can handle it in a spiff. Bam plays the one sometimes. Jimmy can handle the ball. Tyler Hero could. And that's all if they guys stay. But if you trade for Damian Lillard, Hero's going to be gone. Lowry's going to be gone. So you're going to have Damian Lillard and nobody else to handle the rock when Damian Lillard sits down, unless you're counting for Josh Richardson to do so. So I get the reasoning why the Heat are interested in Dragic. He knows the system. He knows what it takes. He knows the Heat culture, and he's boys with Jimmy Butler. So I could see why Dragic would come back. But he has steadily declined over the last 2 seasons. You remember him in that 2019-20 season when the Heat went to the NBA Finals in Jimmy Butler's first year in the 305. He averaged 16 a game. He was tough, man. He was coming off the bench because Kendrick Nunn was at that starting position. We'll get into Nunn later if you believe it or not. And then that year after the bubble, he had that injury, right, in the NBA Finals. And then he really struggled to find his footing the year after. And I meant that pun intended, because he did have a foot injury that battled him throughout that entire season. Shortest offseason NBA history. Him and the Miami Heat took that toll. And then he's really struggled over the past 2 seasons after getting shipped to Toronto in the Kyle Lowry sign-in trade. And then him going to Brooklyn, that didn't work out. And then Chicago, and then Milwaukee. So 4 teams in 2 years for Dragic. It's been a rough end to his career, but if you just go back to what he did for the Miami Heat, he was an absolute stud. You remember the Heat trading for him in that 2015 season? And he's put up big-time numbers for Miami. 16 points per night, 5 assists, shooting 45% from the field and 36.5% from 3. And he was able to even dominate in that bubble playoffs. I mean, let's look back at what he did in the bubble. And he was the main reason why the Miami Heat were able to get to that NBA Finals. The Dragon was absolutely cooking with fire over those 17 games, 19 a night, 4.5 assists, shooting 44% from the field, 35% from 3, and he was so key in dominating the Bucks in drop coverage, and he was just throwing daggers left and right to the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Dragic was absolutely on fire, and he only played in 17 games. If he played those other 4 games, which were in the NBA Finals, I'm telling you, I still believe the Heat would win would have won the NBA Finals that year if Bam and Dragic never got hurt in Game 1 of the 2020 NBA Finals. But I got to ask you guys, put your GM shoes on, act like you're Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, and let me know what you guys would do with Goran Dragic. Would you bring him back? If you want to, type S for sign. If you're going to let him pass and go with another team, type your P's. I tell you what, I think I would take him back, but I'm only taking him for the UD role. Udonis Haslem obviously has retired, and I think the Heat could use an older veteran player that can mentor guys on the back end of their bench. Someone who's been with the Miami Heat for a long time, and Dragic has certainly been in that organization for a long time before being moved to 4 teams in the last 2 years. So I would take him, but I don't think there's much left in the tank for the Dragon, unfortunately. So the left-handed point guard, I think, will have to sit on that bench and just be another coach, if you will. And he's a good vibes guy, right? Great vibes, good boys with Jimmy Butler. So it would make a lot of sense for him to be that guy. Just don't count on him being an actual contributor to the Heat in 2023. I'd say that, though. Join the rocket ship that is the Miami Heat Report, because we are very, very close to 5,000 subscribers. We are 195 away. If Damian Lillard gets moved to the Heat or doesn't get moved to the Miami Heat, we'll be breaking it down for you, and hopefully we'll be doing watch parties all NBA season long for your Miami Heat. So if you don't want to miss out on that, hit that sub button. And if we get to 5,000 subscribers in the next couple of days, I'll be shotgunning a beer on video for you guys. But now I want to talk about 5 other NBA free agent point guards the Miami Heat could sign if it's not Goran Dragic, because I do believe they do need someone, and I kind of outlined it a second ago. The Heat are going to need a backup one, because unless you trust Josh Richardson to do so, it's not going to go so well, in my opinion. But let's start with somebody that is very intriguing to me, and it is Michael Carter-Williams, the former first-round pick out of Syracuse University. A fun little fact, I grew up in New York, so I grew up a Syracuse basketball fan. Michael Carter-Williams is actually my favorite Syracuse basketball player of all time. I just have a thing for long, lengthy guards that are 6'6" and can handle the rock. Michael Carter-Williams was one of my favorite college players of all time. But when it comes to what he could do for the Miami Heat this year, I am intrigued by his length, like I just mentioned. He is a good defensive player as well, and he uses that length to defend shorter point guards and smaller point guards well. The only issue is that he does not play basketball, whether it be because of injuries or something else. He has only played in 4 games over the last 2 seasons, and that is just not going to cut it. The Heat are going to need a backup point guard that is available often. So I don't think Michael Carter-Williams is someone the Heat could sign, but I am definitely intrigued by MCW. Want to know what else intrigues me? This sweatshirt right here at Fanatics, because it is $44 off right now at our link, chatsports.com/Heat sweatshirt. It's creeping up to October, to the fall. It's going to get a little chilly in the 305, or if you're watching from somewhere else, you could always use a sweatshirt. So go to our link, chatsports.com/Heat sweatshirt. It is in the comments and description of today's video. Mine's on its way as we currently speak. I can't wait to rock this when Heat season comes around in October. Let's move on to another point guard, and it's John Wall. And you might have got. Let's just be honest here. You guys probably got by a fake report yesterday that John Wall was discussing terms with potentially signing with a team overseas. And let me just tell you, that is fake news. John Wall came out himself and said that he is not talking with a team overseas. And it probably makes sense, because I don't think Wall would want to go play overseas anyway. He's trying to make a comeback into the league. And a comeback would be something out of this world for Mr. John Wall, because he has not played many games over the past 4 seasons, hasn't even eclipsed a full season of 82 in the past 4 years. He's had to deal with a couple injuries that's kept him out the entire season. When he was with the Rockets 3 years ago, he was okay, but didn't contribute to winning basketball. And last season, when he got another shot with the Los Angeles Clippers, he averaged 11.5 points per game, but did not shoot the ball effectively and did not contribute to winning basketball in the Clippers, and ended up going away from John Wall and electing to sign Russell Westbrook over John Wall. And I'll say this, Wall is probably cooked. And I get that he could be an experienced veteran point guard on the bench of this Miami Heat team to play 10 to 12 minutes a night when Damian Lillard could potentially sit down. But I don't know if he fits the Heat culture, and I don't know if he has what it takes at this stage of his career to be effective, because his jump shot is still not there, and you're going to need to have a point guard that can shoot the rock when you're playing with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. When you assume he's filling in for Lillard, which he would be, he needs to space the floor because Jimmy doesn't shoot threes often and Bam doesn't shoot threes often. So if you have a point guard that can't shoot a three, you're going to have problems. And if Wall can't beat his man one-on-one and get to the rack and create for others because that burst is not there anymore, I think I would stay away from John Wall. But I want to hear who you guys want to sign for the Miami Heat. Name a point guard the Heat should sign down in the comments section. I'm intrigued. There's not too many good names out there. You're seeing 5 or 6 of the best ones right now. So let me know who you guys think the Heat should sign down below. All right, next on the list. I'm sorry, guys. Kendrick Nunn, another point guard in free agency the Miami Heat could still sign. I know this is going to bring up some old wounds, and I'm sorry. I just am. I had to bring him up. Kendrick Nunn is still out there. Could the Heat look into bringing back a lefty point guard that is in Dragic that used to play for the team? Kendrick Nunn's had a fall from grace, let's say that, in his rookie season, 2019-20 with the Miami Heat, when he bursted onto the scene out of Oakland, 15 points per night, shot the ball well, was the starting point guard for the Heat that ended up being the 5th seed, and then obviously went to the NBA Finals that year, and then he tried to back it up in 2020-21 and could never really find his footing, struggled a little bit, fell out of favor in Miami, ended up going to the Lakers in free agency, but missed that entire 2021-22 season, and then this past year struggled with the Lakers and was ultimately shipped off to Washington in the Rui Hachimura deal. But I think something people forget is that Kendrick Nunn actually finished 2nd in the Rookie of the Year voting in 2019-20. Fun fact, and people are going to forget this, and this is going to be a trivia game and a trivia question in about 5 to 10 years at your local bar, so buckle in and come up close to me. Ja Morant was unanimous at number 1. Kendrick Nunn was the 2nd Rookie of the Year, too, and Zion was number 3. I always love when you think of Rookie of the Years, Kendrick Nunn almost damn won that award, and he's sandwiched in between Ja and Zion. Obviously, 2 polarizing figures in the NBA as we currently speak. Kendrick Nunn, what a funny player he was. Let's move on here to Frank Ntilikina, the former 8th overall pick. Could this be someone the Miami Heat are intrigued to? And I'll tell you what. This intrigues me. He's the 8th overall pick in that 2017 NBA draft by the Knicks, and he's never really found his footing as someone who's coming over from France. But something that does intrigue me is his defense and his wingspan. We'll get to that in a second, but if you look at what he's done over the past 4 seasons, it hasn't been much when it comes to the offensive end. He's available, right? Like, he plays. He doesn't play a lot, but he does play in some games. He was with the Mavs this last year and got some PT as a backup guard that can defend. The three-point shot has never developed. That 47.9% year in 2020-21 is very fake. Don't buy into that, but he's not a scoring guard. He's more of a defensive guard, and there is a lot of talent there, right? He was a 8th overall selection in the 2017 draft, like I mentioned. But the thing that would make me intrigued to signing him as a backup guard on this Heat is that he can defend. He's a plus defender. He's been known, and that's been his calling card over the past 4 seasons. And for a guard of his stature, who's 6'4", to have a 7'1" wingspan, that is just fake. 6'4", 7'1" wingspan, you can really get into guys, right? Squat down, get your hands out, and cause havoc in the passing lanes. And if there's going to be an organization that can turn around Ntilikina's career, I believe it could be the Miami Heat. You get him in a limited role as Damian Lillard's potential backup in the 305. His defensive prowess, you get him in the Miami Heat shooting lab, and Ntilikina can actually become a really dangerous player. Kind of would be intrigued on Frank the Tank. Let's move on to PJ Dozier, the last player on my list. And When I was looking at Dozier, a lot of things caught my eyes, and I was pretty surprised with what I saw from Dozier, right? Like, I remembered him on that Denver Nuggets team. And what I've learned is that he wasn't as good as my mind would like to make me think he is. Like 5.8 points, 7.7, 5.4. And in this last year with the Kings has been really, really bad. But the problem is that he never plays. 29 games 4 seasons ago, 53 years ago, 18-2, and then 16 last year. He also doesn't have a 3-point game. It's very disappointing to see PJ Dozier put up these type of numbers because he's someone that has all the intangibles and measurables to be a really good role player. And I do like PJ Dozier in a sense for the Miami Heat. And there's a couple main reasons why I do think he can work in the 305. One, he can handle the ball and play as a forward. This is not your prototypical point guard, and I wouldn't even classify him as a true point guard. He's 6'6" with a 6'11" wingspan, so I love his wingspan and height combo. But going back to this reason right here is he does have a little bit of a handle. He has decent vision, and he can really fill in as a... It's hard to say this because Ben Simmons is not that good, but if Ben Simmons is here, right, like PJ Dozier is just this version of him. So I like his defense, I like his size, I like his playmaking. He could potentially be a backup one. It's a little of a risky move, and I don't really see the Heat going this way, but I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on Dozier and at least bringing him in the training camp. If no one else is going to sign him, Dozier to me is still a capable NBA player. I don't think he should be going into retired mode already or the G League. I think that he could bring him in on a training camp deal and see what he's got and see if he could find a spot in this Miami Heat rotation. That's going to do it for today's show. Like I mentioned off the top, if you're still here, follow me on Twitter at Nick_Roloff. I'm talking anything and everything Miami Heat. And if you are one of the first 10 people to give me a follow on the Twitter Bird app, I'll give you a shout out on the next show.